Hello, beautiful people. Today we're going to talk about patterns, and more patterns. We're going to talk about fabric patterns today. But before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also follow us on our social media platforms on Instagram at unique_threads_. You can also follow us on Facebook at Unique Threads Collection. So now we're going to talk about the different types of fabric patterns. This is important. You need to take into account your body type, meaning your height, your weight, and your build when you decide on which pattern to go with. It's also important to know the occasion. So when do you plan on wearing this suit? So we'll go into that in a little bit more detail later on. But first, I want to outline what are those common patterns, the traditional patterns that you typically see on most suits, whether they be off the rack or custom suits. So we'll talk about those, and after that we'll talk about what's new and trending today. So what's popular today? What are all the cool kids wearing right now? So let's get started with the solid. Many may say this is boring, but the solid is a tried and true. So solid pattern fabrics are just one tone, no patterns whatsoever. Every man or woman should have a solid color suit in their closet, whether that's a black, navy, brown. Those are the three most common solid color suits. And to be honest, I have at least two of each in my closet. So you can't go wrong with the solid color suit. You can wear it at almost any occasion, whether it's formal or casual. So next we're going to talk about pinstripe. Pinstripe is one of my favorite. This is the most common pattern suit. I repeat that, the most common pattern is pinstripe. Pinstripe is perfect for business attire. You can see it mostly in the professional environment. Pinstripes come in different degrees. So when I say different degrees, I'll talk about the variation. So the spacing in between the pinstripes can vary. They can be very tight or they can be very loose. Also, the thickness of the pinstripe can be very thin or be wider. So I have an example here to show you. So this right here is a navy blue pinstripe, and you can compare this fabric in which the spacing is very tight to this one in which the spacing is very loose. The other difference is the pinstripe itself, the line. This one is very thin and faint, and this one is much thicker. So pinstripes are great because you know what they do? They make you look slim. They slim you down, they make you look slim and taller, and they work great with almost any body type. The next pattern we're going to talk about, take a guess, is Windowpane. So I am rocking a Windowpane gray suit right now. Windowpane is also one of my favorites. I think you'll learn very quickly that I love suits and I love all patterns. So Windowpane is perfect because you can see the perfect shapes in terms of the checks and the squares and the pattern. Windowpane is great because it adds a little bit of more flair, design than the pinstripe. Windowpane, you could use it for more casual events. You wouldn't see it as much in the work environment, but definitely casual, formal events, informal events are perfect for wearing Windowpane. The most common colors for Windowpane suits are gray. The next design we're going to talk about is Glenurquhart. Again, Glenurquhart. Glenurquhart is also referred to as Glen plaid. It's very similar to the Windowpane. The only difference is that with the Glen plaid, you have a twill design. You also have small and large checks. Here's an example of a beautiful Glen plaid fabric. You can see this fabric has both light and dark brown color. Glen plaid works exceptionally well with sport coats and blazers. And they also look nice with other patterns. Typically what you'll see is a Glen plaid blazer matched with a solid color trouser. So you have the Glen plaid blazer, which in that example that I just showed you with that light and dark brown, and you could pair it very nicely with some tan trousers, solid color. If you wanted to be bold, you could also do a different pattern such as pinstripes. So Glen plaid, I would say, is on more fashionable, and I have a few in my closet. It's perfect for whether it's a night out, dinner date, it's a social event, perfect for that type of event. You could even pair it with a pair of jeans. So you can't go wrong with Glenurquhart. Next is Houndstooth. You may be wondering, where does the name Houndstooth come from? Well, it was given the name Houndstooth because it resembles the shape of a dog's tooth. So the edges are very sharp. Here's an example of a Houndstooth fabric. Houndstooth is another pattern that works very well with the sports coat blazer. It could be paired nicely with a pair of jeans or solid trousers. I highly recommend it because it's pattern and style. It's not as conservative as the Pinstripe, but also not too flashy. Perfect for grabbing a drink or going to a cigar bar. The next pattern is Herringbone. Herringbone is another interesting name. It was given the name because it resembles a cartoon fishbone. So it's very distinct. When you see it, you'll know it. It has a distinctive V pattern. Some are more pronounced than others. Here's an example of a blue herringbone fabric. And as I stated, some of them are more pronounced than others. Herringbone is another fabric that works well, whether it's just a blazer or sports coat or a full two-piece, three-piece suit. I personally love herringbone pattern as well. It's not as bold as the Houndstooth or the Glen plaid, but also not as boring as the solid. So I also have, as I stated before, I have a herringbone suit in my closet as well. And what I like about it is the subtleness, the subtle details that you notice in it. So as I stated, these are just a sample of just the various types of fabrics. I mean, we barely scratched the surface. There's also dots. You could also have a checkered pattern. So if you operate in a business professional environment like myself, I am a consultant by day. The patterns that you will want to select are the more conservative fabrics, such as the solid color. Also, pinstripes will work perfect for the business professional environment. And if you want to be a little bit daring, you could wear a Glen plaid that's very subtle. If you work in a business casual environment, then you may be able to get away with something a little bit more stylish, such as the herringbone, as well as the Glen plaid. And you can play with different colors and designs. So in a business casual environment, you have the luxury of wearing a sports coat or a blazer as opposed to a full suit, and thus you have the ability to kind of play with many more patterns and not restrict it to just the pinstripes or the solid color. So as I stated at the beginning of this video, the two things that you want to consider is your body type and the occasion for which you want to wear a suit when choosing which pattern to go with. So we talked about the occasion, so whether it's the business professional or business casual setting. So now let's talk about body type. We briefly touched on it when we talked about pinstripes, but when you're selecting your pattern, you want to select patterns that complement your strength. So pinstripe is great for men that are shorter, as well as men that are on the heavier side. The reason being is because the pinstripe pattern makes you look slimmer and taller. So it's great for shorter men because the pinstripes give you the illusion that the individual is not as short as they really are. The same with men on the heavier side. The pinstripe pattern makes the men look slimmer than they really are. So it's recommended for shorter men and men in the heavier side that pinstripe is a good pattern to select. The other reason why pinstripe is great is because, as I mentioned before, it's perfect for almost any setting, whether it's business casual or business professional. And for the shorter men, it's recommended that you go with the thinner pinstripe that are closely spaced together. And then men on the heavier side, it's recommended that you go with the thicker pinstripe, the thicker line, and the pinstripes that are more spaced apart. So that's the recommendation. Also, another pattern that's recommended for men on the heavier side is the Windowpane. So the Windowpane is another fabric that complements men on the heavier side. So I hope you found this information very useful. When you're purchasing your next suit, you take into consideration your body type and also take into consideration where you plan on wearing this suit. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. We'll be creating additional content on men's fashion, bespoke tailoring, custom suits. So we love to get feedback from you all. As I stated earlier, please subscribe to our channel